My heart stopped twice on the delivery table, but the doctors didn't tell me until I woke up screaming for my baby. I thought the pain was the price of love until my husband whispered he wanted out. Clara's hands trembled as she gripped the hospital bed's cold railings, the beeping monitors a cruel metronome to her fading pulse. She'd always wanted a family, but it was David who'd begged for a child, his eyes alight with dreams of fatherhood during their late-night talks. "We'll be a team," he'd said, kissing her knuckles under the glow of their porch light. Clara, a pragmatic high school teacher with a laugh that could thaw any frost, had hesitated. Her career was her anchor, her students, her pride. But David's pleading wore her down, his vision of a tiny hand in his, too vivid to resist. She agreed, and they dove into the chaos of trying ovulation tests, doctor visits, the quiet hope of two pink lines. When Clara finally got pregnant, David was ecstatic, spinning her around their cramped Chicago apartment until they collapsed. Laughing, on the couch, he talked to her belly, promising their unborn daughter. Lily, the world a swing set, bedtime stories, a dog named Max. Clara, glowing despite the nausea, believed every word. She ignored the warning signs, David's late nights at the law firm, his distracted glances, the way his smile dimmed when bills piled up. She chalked it up to stress. They were building a life, after all. The delivery was a nightmare. Clara's labor stretched into 36 grueling hours. Her body pushed beyond its limits. Preeclampsia struck like a thief, spiking her blood pressure and blurring her vision. The doctors' voices grew sharp, urgent, as they wheeled her into surgery. She heard emergency C-section and hemorrhage before the world went black. Her heart stopped twice, they later told her, but they brought her back. When she woke, Lily's cry was the first sound she registered, a piercing, beautiful wail that anchored her to life. David was there, holding her hand, his face pale but smiling. "You did it," he whispered. "She's perfect." Clara, weak but alive, believed they'd made it through the worst. The first year with Lily was a blur of sleepless nights and small miracles. Clara's recovery was slow, her body scarred and fragile from the ordeal. She'd lost so much blood that even climbing stairs left her dizzy. Yet she poured herself into motherhood, memorizing Lily's gurgles, her tiny fist curling around her finger. David, though, seemed to drift. He'd come home late, claiming client meetings, his eyes avoiding hers. When he held Lily, it felt mechanical, like a duty rather than joy. Clara noticed but didn't press. She was too tired, too focused on surviving each day. On Lily's first birthday, Clara planned a small party, just them, a homemade cake, and a single candle. She'd spent hours decorating, her hands still shaky but determined to make it special. David came home late, his tie loosened, his face unreadable. After Lily was asleep, he sat Clara down on their worn couch, the same one where they'd dreamed of their future. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice flat. "I want a divorce." Clara's world tilted. She laughed at first, thinking it was a cruel joke, but his eyes cold. Resolute told her otherwise. "What do you mean?" she stammered, her voice cracking. "You begged for this. For her. For us." David looked away, his jaw tight. "I thought I wanted this life, Clara, but it's too much. The responsibility, the pressure. It's not what I signed up for." The words cut deeper than the scalpel had. Clara's mind raced back to the hospital, to the moment she'd nearly died bringing Lily into the world. She'd fought for their family, for his dream, and now he was walking away. "You don't get to just leave," she said, her voice rising. "You don't get to beg me to risk everything and then decide it's too hard." David's silence was louder than any apology. He packed a bag that night and left, the door clicking shut like a guillotine. The weeks that followed were a fog of grief and rage. Clara, still physically weak, became a single mother overnight. She juggled Lily's needs with her own recovery, her heart a battlefield of betrayal and love. She'd look at Lily's sleeping face and sob, Not for herself, but for the father her daughter deserved. David's visits were sporadic, his excuses flimsy. He'd send money, but it felt like blood money, a transaction to ease his guilt. Clara's friends rallied around her, but their pity stung. She didn't want to be the abandoned wife, the cautionary tale. One night, staring at Lily's crib, Clara made a choice. She wouldn't let David's betrayal define her. She enrolled in therapy, dragging herself to sessions despite the exhaustion. She leaned on her sister, Mara, who moved in to help with Lily. Slowly, Clara rebuilt her strength, physical and emotional. She returned to teaching, her classroom a refuge where her students' chaos drowned out her own. Her laughter, once buried, began to resurface, sparked by a student's bad joke or Lily's first clumsy steps. But David wasn't done disrupting her life. 6 months after he left, he called, his voice softer, almost broken. "I made a mistake," he said. "I want to come back. For Lily. For you." Clara's heart twisted, torn between the love she'd once felt and the scars he'd left. She agreed to meet him, not out of hope but curiosity. At a coffee shop, David looked older, his eyes heavy with regret. He spoke of therapy, of realizing he'd been overwhelmed by fatherhood, by the near loss of Clara. "I panicked," he admitted. "I didn't know how to handle it." Clara listened, her hands steady around her mug. She saw his pain, but it didn't erase hers. "You begged me to have her," she said quietly. "I almost died. David. And you walked away when I needed you most." He flinched, but she continued. "Lily deserves a father who stays, not one who runs when it gets hard. And I deserve better too." The conversation stretched into hours, raw and unfiltered. David pleaded, but Clara's resolve was iron. She'd survived too much to settle for half-hearted promises. When they parted, she felt a strange peace, like shedding a weight she'd carried too long. She drove home to Lily, who was waiting with Mara, her tiny arms outstretched. Clara scooped her up, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo, and knew she'd made the right choice. Months turned into a year, and Clara thrived in ways she hadn't expected. She joined a support group for single mothers, finding strength in their shared stories. She started a blog, pouring her pain and triumphs into words that resonated with strangers online. Her students noticed her spark, dubbing her Ms. Unbreakable. Lily grew into a fearless toddler, her laughter a daily reminder of why Clara fought. David faded into occasional visits, his role reduced to a footnote in their lives. Clara's journey wasn't about revenge or bitterness. It was about reclaiming her worth, about showing Lily that love, real love, doesn't abandon. She'd nearly died to bring her daughter into the world, and that sacrifice had forged a strength no betrayal could break. As she tucked Lily into bed one night, singing a lullaby under the glow of a star-shaped nightlight, Clara felt whole, not because she'd won, but because she'd survived. What do you think? Was Clara right to reject David's plea for reconciliation? Or should she have given him a second chance for Lily's sake? Share your thoughts on justice, forgiveness, and the cost of love in the comments below.